Let's get to our panel this Monday. Peter McGauran, former Minister in the Howard Government, now Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners, and Simon Banks, former Labor Advisor, now Managing Director at Hawker Britain. Gentlemen, great to see you both. I want to play you this exchange I had with Jim Chalmers just this morning about the Prime Minister being booed last night at the tennis.
But there was a decent boo for the PM. I'm not expecting they're all just Medvedev fans. It's probably something to do with the tax. Are you worried about that reaction?
Oh, I didn't see it. I was travelling here. I got the late flight from Brizzy to here so that I could spend time with you this morning, Kieran. I think it's a well-worn Australian tradition at sporting events for that to happen, and I don't think we should read too much into it.
Peter McGauran, what do you think? How has this tax changed, this backflip gone down? It didn't seem like the Melbourne Park fans were too pleased.
No. So Anthony Albanese is now just another politician. That's the price he and his government will pay for the outright lie. And it's interesting that Peter Dutton repeatedly called him a liar, and nobody disagreed, least of all Jim Chalmers. How can you? So it would have achieved his objective of getting him out of a deep hole that he sadly dug for himself in his governments on the lack of a cost of living response, but it's been at a heavy cost. Look, it's not fatal, obviously, because he's not ripping money out of people's pockets. That is fatal for a politician. But it brings him back to the field. So we'll soon know whether or not through the polls, how big, whether or not it's proved to be as damaging as some are claiming or not. But regardless, the perception of him changes from this point on.
Do you accept that, Simon? That's where the PM is now, off the back of this change of heart on tax?
Oh, look, I think the change, the government generally came back to the pack during the course of last year, principally because of the rising concerns on Middle Australia about the cost of living, and obviously the government's tackling that issue now. But I mean, if you want to talk about booing, I mean, I remember when Scott Morrison in 2019, got booed at the footy, went on to win an election. My most famous one I remember is Gough Whitlam. I think he was up in Newcastle, went on the ground with his MP, he got announced, got booed in that great Australian tradition, turned around to his colleague, and only the way that Gough can said to his colleague, "Comrade, I never knew you were so unpopular."
Exactly. There's a long tradition of politicians copying it. On the substance of the change, though, Simon, does the benefit, as Peter said there, a lot of people not losing money but getting money, does it make up for the breach of the election commitment? How does this play out, do you think, in your view, politically over the next 12 months?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, voters will obviously weigh these decisions up, and of course, they're going to have plenty of time between now and an election that's not due until early 2025 to actually make up their mind. I've got to say, a lot of the feedback I get from speaking to Labor MPs around the country is that the initial response from most voters is generally positive to the change that's been made, and unsurprising given that some 11 million Australians are net beneficiaries out of this tax package. There's a real issue here. There is a cost of living concern going on inside Middle Australia. And so far, the Coalition are basically telling those voters that they're going to let them eat cake, that they're not going to do anything for them, that they've just got to wait and not get anything. So that's the debate we're going to have over the next couple of weeks, with the Parliament coming back literally next week. I think this will be a major issue that will dominate, particularly in that first sitting for it.
I understand why Peter Dutton is going all about the integrity and the broken promise. Peter McGauran, that makes sense for the immediate reaction. What about the substantive reaction in terms of what they do when the votes come around and when it comes to commitments one way or the other on these tax changes?
That's the key question, Kieran. Leaving aside the politics, how damaged he is, particularly over the long term. And by the way, Simon, I don't want to do a Barry Jones on you, but it was not. But the story you told is perfectly accurate. But it was Gough Whitlam with Senator Burt McAuliffe in the Queensland 1974 Rugby League Grand Final.
Done.
So,
wow,
I'm more of a Labor historian than you. So now, Kieran, we move to the policy, and in a sense here, Jim Chalmers and Anthony Albanese has let the cat out of the bag, because they're now faced with an increasing debate of bracket creep. So previously, if they'd let the stage 3 tax cuts sail through, that would have been the end of the debate. But now they've got a big debate on their hands. The business groups have come out and said that the tax system is inefficient and incompetent and rotten to the core. Everybody knows that. We get 40% of government revenue from personal income tax. OECD average is 24%. So they might have created a debate that's going to be much more difficult for them to solve than letting stage 3 sail through.
Peter, Simon, talk to you next week. Thank you so much.